Hi everybody. I don't know if you can see me or not. I got a new computer and for some reason the camera on it's not working, so we get to use our phone again today. If you could, I've got my computer right here and I also have my phone. If you could let me know whether you can see me, whether this is working. I don't want to talk to myself for a half an hour, as entertaining as that might be. Please let me know if you can see me. Helen and Christy, my people that help me, if you're on there, please let me know via text whether you can see me or not. Hoping that this is working. We talked today with Sloane about what's going on in the world and how to know what you should be doing. So some of the things, we have people logging on right now, so apparently I am being seen. So I want to really think about, what are some of the things we talked about today and how might that impact you? You can put comments on here. It looks like, let me see. God, I hate this stuff. It looks like, let me see, I've got a couple people on. It looks like you can put some comments on. I'm not sure. I see a comment at the bottom from Laura. So yay, I'm glad I'm on. But what we talked about today, just to get you started if you weren't able to listen to the segment, and it really started with this article that was in the Wall Street Journal today. People seek skills for jobs with stability. And yeah, we all want some sense of stability in our work lives. We want to know that the paychecks are coming in. And then we got into this whole discussion about all these other things that are going on that impact this. So let's break it down. There is a push and a movement by some major companies to not require 4-year degrees for all of the jobs that they used to require 4-year degrees for. Tesla, Apple, Google, Facebook. Now it may take a while to get to cities that are located where you are, but we've got these big cities, big companies saying these things. We aren't necessarily requiring a 4-year degree. You don't necessarily have to work here in our building to work for us. So just those two factors alone are changing the workplace, are changing our world when it comes to careers. So you could live in Omaha and work for FedEx or Google. If you have the skills they want, they're not going to be that picky about, do you have a degree? Maybe you've got all this experience, or maybe you have a certificate. You went online and got some sort of certificate for a field that you want to pursue. So those two things. Now we've got companies saying you don't necessarily need to live or work in our building or live in our city. You don't necessarily need a 4-year degree. And now look at what's happened in terms of online learning. Back in 2008, when the last recession came around, or the last real downturn in the market, we didn't have the online learning options that we have now. So there are companies like Perscholas, if you want to look that up, Perscholas. There's a company called Merit, Merit America. I think it's Merit America. My alma mater, Purdue, purchased Kaplan Online Learning, and all these universities that were really against online learning have been forced to go to online learning. So there is a huge amount of people, people going online to learn new things because they're looking around, and this is exactly what this article says, is that people are looking around and saying, I'm not, I need stability. I don't know if my job is coming back. So we have this perfect storm of geographic flexibility, educational flexibility, meaning there's online learning opportunities and colleges are relooking at how they're educating, and employers are saying, okay, we want you to do this. And then on top of that, so that's the center, all around that, all these different employers are changing maybe what they do. Look at travel, tourism, retail. I said on Sloane this morning that I went into Nordstrom yesterday and it was like a ghost town. Not only was nobody shopping there, nobody was working there, and there was very little merchandise. So is this just a movement to online, to online retail being online? So think about it this way. If you're thinking about your situation, it's really easy to think that, this isn't going to happen to me. People need what I do, and this isn't going to happen to me, so I can just ignore this and go back to my old job. Hopefully they'll call me back, and I can go back to being as miserable as I was before. You are going to be sadly mistaken in a lot of cases, because employers are looking at how do we change our work, and as a result of that, how do we serve our customers differently? They may not need you or your skill set. So you got to think about, what is it? What is it? How can you bend and flex with this new world? So the good news is there's opportunity to maybe work for companies that didn't have the opportunity to work for before, because companies in other cities are becoming work from anywhere companies. So that's good news. The good news is, if you're somebody who has good technical skills, or you're somebody who is a good problem solver, you've got good project management skills, and you're somebody who's really agile, like you can get in there and learn new things really quickly, this is also your time. So, and if you are in a field where you could really up your game by taking an online certificate or program, this is also a good time for you. It's not a good time for you if you are stuck in what you've always done. And if you're saying, I have no skills or experience beyond high school, and I'm looking to make decent money to support a family, it's not a good time for you. And I've been saying this for a very long time. So this is not COVID related. It's not new. It's not a good time for you if you're not willing to learn and go out and be open-minded and be flexible. In this Wall Street Journal article, there was this wonderful phrase. I love it. So right now people are in the situation where they're furloughed or their job's gone away, but they don't know what else they want to do. So the Wall Street Journal called this, you need a lifeboat job. And I love that, transition job, but I love the visual of a lifeboat. So you might be a marketing director, and you might be saying, well, I can't do that in the past. I can't do that like I've done in the past, or I'm having a hard time finding it, or whatever it is. In my field, nobody's hiring. You need to do whatever you can. You need to get in the lifeboat to stay alive, to keep feeding your family. But then also you have to look at, lifeboats aren't meant to be forever. That's why I love this phrase, because it's sort of like your spare tire in your trunk. It's not meant to carry you for the next year or so. What else can you be doing? How can you reinvent yourself, or flex, or pivot to do something different? So we are COVID has forced us to get into this mode where everybody has to look around and say, I have to do something different. Colleges and universities, like I said, they're trying to decide what to do, because they can't, some of them are saying, we can't have everybody on campus all at once. They're changing their schedules. What a lot of universities are doing is they're saying, okay, come back in August, stay until Thanksgiving, and then don't come back till January. They're trying to minimize the amount of travel people do on and off campus. Now, you can't stop it, but you can minimize it. So when you look at what you do, I would ask yourself, take a look around. You can never look at what you do outside of the context of the world we live in. So if you're in a job that you're looking around and you say, okay, does there seem to be demand for this? One of the examples I gave this morning on WLW was hotels, right? Airbnb, up. Airbnb, VRBO, those places that allow you to rent homes or a private space versus a hotel, it's up. People are saying, I got to get out of here. I want to get out, but I want to be safe. So think about that for a minute. If you go to a hotel, all these other people are there. If you rent a house or, on Airbnb, then if you rent a house on Airbnb, you can quiz the owner about how they clean. You can also bring your own cleaning supplies and clean. You can go out to the store, get groceries, come back. You don't even have to go to restaurants. I was in Florida a couple weeks ago. We went to a restaurant one time. So you have to look at, what does the world require of what you're doing? Don't get stuck in, this will have to come back. And maybe it will, whatever you did, if it's not doing very well right now, but it might come back differently. So how can you stay ahead of it? That is a critical question. What can you do to stay ahead of it? And so you want to think about, things like people are spending money on home improvements. If you went to Lowe's or Home Depot right after things start opening up again, you saw the lines were out the door because people are focusing inward. They're moving inward. They're doing things that don't require them to be exposed to a lot of people. They're still doing things, but they're staying away from those places where they're being exposed to a lot of people. Now, I thought that the cruise industry would go away and never come back, but I also saw that they're offering these deals and people are signing up for cruises. And I think didn't just a cruise ship just come in from California that had been on the water for weeks and weeks? So everybody's different, but it's going to be different. The demand may not be there. So you ask yourself, how do I want to be a part of this new economy as it unfolds? So I would even go online. If I were you, I would go online and look at Perscalis. I would look at Merit America. I would look at all of the programs being taught online and just start reading them, reading the descriptions and say, does this sound like something I'd want to learn how to do? Another thing, mental health. I keep hearing that mental health is going to be such an issue with people's mental health after they're allowed to go outside a little bit more and allowed to be out and about a little bit more. But my friends who are therapists are talking about that people are just freaking out because, it's whatever issues they had before, they're bigger when everybody's under one roof. So if you would like to help in a counseling or mental health perspective, could you go back and if you have an undergrad in something, could you go back and get a master's in social work? So some of those fields like that, well, and rightly so, those are always going to require a degree. You're not going to be able to get an online certificate and be a surgeon. But there are those fields in which companies are being smarter about, do we really need a degree? As I said this morning on Sloaney, in healthcare, back January, February, we're like, oh yeah, healthcare, get something in healthcare, you'll always be fine. And you will long term, but right now that dip where companies were saying, or healthcare organizations were saying, we're not doing elective surgeries. They weren't doing colonoscopies. They weren't doing mammograms. They weren't doing anything that was considered elective because they needed all hands on deck for COVID. Well, some of them are starting to open up again and they're doing some of those quote unquote non-essential services. They're going to need support. If you look at Grubhub, Airbnb, Uber, Lyft, FedEx, UPS, Amazon. That's just one group of companies. Now you're looking at that maybe saying, well, I don't want to work in a warehouse. No. Every one of those companies I just mentioned needs support outside of just people delivering food and packages. So what is it? If you're a project manager, if you're a customer service specialist, if you're in marketing, those companies need people in those areas potentially as well. And so you've got to really align who you are, what you're good at, and what you want with what the world needs. And right now, I understand it's really tricky because we don't know what the world needs. And it is evolving every day. Highly suggest that, you pick up the Wall Street Journal a couple times a week or, get a subscription online because I am learning so much about what companies are doing just by reading that. And when I was looking for a topic today for Sloaney, I got my issue this morning and just started turning the pages. And I saw some of the most interesting articles about what's hot and what people are looking for. And the Cincinnati Business Courier, if you're in Cincinnati, any of those online publications. There's something called Business Insider that looked to have some really good articles. It was subscription and I didn't want to do that today. So I just moved on to some free articles to prepare for my segment with Sloaney this morning. And so what is it that people need? So for instance, my friend Kelly is on this call. I just saw her pop up. She's a home chef. She makes food for people and she's been doing it once a week. Now, before COVID happened, she was a private chef and she would go into people's homes and, they'd decide what they wanted and she would go in and make their meals for the week. Well, some people, think about it, didn't want other people coming in and Kelly was like, maybe I don't want to go into people's homes. So she lost a little bit of business. So what did she do? She pivoted and said, okay, I know people are staying home. They don't want to go out to restaurants. How can I get some of my income back and help my friends at the same time and help them with their issues? And so once a week, she delivers food to your house. She tells you what the menu is going to be in advance and delivers a meal to your house. And I can make it last, a couple days. Now, for somebody like Kelly, who's a one-man show, she can't do that for lots of people. But again, it was a lifeboat for her. She may decide to carry on for some reason, or maybe not. Maybe her private clients will come back. So you've got to think about, what can you do that people want that has to do with people staying home? Unfortunately, it looks like we're not going to be going back out a lot more anytime sooner. Concerts, shows, everything is unfortunately becoming off the table. So what is it you can do, either in a lifeboat way, just until things get better, or in a way that is going to help propel you to whatever that next career might be for you? And the beauty of this is, and this is where people get really stuck, is they believe that they have to have all the answers before they start doing something, before they start moving into it. But you can start researching right now. So you want to go out there, look at what courses are being offered online. Look at things like University of Phoenix, those places that do a good job of offering online programs. I think they're still in business. I think there was something going on with them, but I believe they still are. What kind of online certificates and programs that are retraining you to do something different or something better or up your game? So maybe you're like a healthcare administrator, but you want to up your game in terms of solid project management skills. This is a time to add some icing onto your cupcake as well. And then see which one of those appeal to you. Now, as an example, if you look at it and say, well, nurses are in demand, that doesn't necessarily mean that's for you. I personally would be a horrible nurse. So you want to make sure that it's something that you could do, that you could be at least reasonably excited about doing, and that you'd be good at, and that that you wouldn't say, I'm just doing this because it looks to be in demand. It's a combination. If you've listened to me for a while, through all these years, you know it has to be a combination of something you're good at and something you like and something the market needs. I always say, you might be the best typewriter repair person in the world, but nobody wants that right now. You might be a great travel agent, but are you really going to make a career of that moving forward? Or is this non-travel sort of stuff that people are doing, is it going to stick around for a while? And as can being a travel agent, maybe travel agents, maybe people are still going to need help with travel, but maybe it's going to look different. So maybe you look and see, what's VRBO doing? What's Airbnb doing? What are some of the cutting edge travel and leisure organizations doing? And how could you jump in and be a part of that? So you've got to look out for yourself. And I feel like I am like a broken record because I always say things like this. You've got to figure out what is it you could do and advocate for yourself. If you're waiting for your employer to come back and say, okay, Fred, we know your job's going away, but here's other 6 jobs. Would you like to do any of these? That could happen, I guess. But chances are you've got to be the one to say, hey, I think my job may not come back, but here's some other things I think I could do to help this organization. So these are some of the things we do when we help our clients. And we're getting ready to roll out a new program where it's 3 sessions instead of a full for that to come into what we do. And if you're interested in hearing about it, just send me a note on Facebook to help kind of kickstart your search and get you in action and get you pointed in the right direction. And it's a lot less expensive than the 3-month program. So I can see your messages popping up here on my screen. What questions do you have? I know I've got a private chef on here. I see I've got an HR person. I've got an executive assistant. I've got an accountant. So all of you are, every single one of you should be thinking, what is it that I want to do? So HR, you guys are so involved in how do we come back from this? How do we come back from this in a way that keeps our people safe? And how do we reinvent ourselves from a workforce standpoint? I don't envy you. I used to be in HR and I'm glad I'm not, because it's overwhelming. And so what do you want? How do you want to come out of this? How do you want to come out of this? That's my big question for today. How do you want to come out of COVID? What do you want to be doing? How do you want to come out? This is your opportunity to come forward, come present, and be something different on the other side of it. If you hate what you're doing and all you're doing is sitting around waiting to go back and do more of the same, I understand that there's risk there. I understand it's really frightening. But really thinking about what is it that how do you want to come out of this? And how can you start moving toward that right now? This is a time of great opportunity. So what questions do you have? Put them in the comments because they're popping up at the bottom of my screen. I've got another HR person on here right now. Hi, Joan. People who are in charge of people. And in your situations, I think from a company perspective, asking your people, making sure that you're staying in touch with your people and how they're doing, and asking them, how do you want to come out of this? What would you like to do more of and less of when things get to whatever our new level of normal is going to be? That is such a powerful question to ask somebody. And generally what you're going to get is, I don't know, nobody's ever asked me that. Well, guess what? The time has come for these conversations to start to happen. Because you've only done one job for the last 3 years or 30 years doesn't mean that's all you can do. You've got to take a risk and invest time, energy, and resources in getting the most out of the rest of your career. What questions do we have? What time is it? It's 12:20. I like to stay on to 12:30. What questions do we have? You know, one of the questions that I get a lot, and please put your questions at the bottom, is, how do I know what the market's looking for? Well, there's not one foolproof way of knowing, but what I would do if I were you is I would go on LinkedIn or Indeed. I like LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn could rule the world one day in terms of how hiring happens. On your LinkedIn profile, a lot of times it'll bring up here are jobs that we think might be a fit for you. And what we do a lot of times is read the title, then go, nah. Read it. Read the description. Read the job description. What is it that companies are hiring for? Go out, be curious, put search words in on LinkedIn, look at those jobs, look at people who are doing those jobs. You have to get out there. Think of being a detective. There's no one website, there's no one way to know who's hiring you. So a lot of times I'll get the question, who's hiring? Well, I always say that's not really relevant. It's really who's hiring you and who do you want to work for? And this is the part where people fall apart and really, as I say, start peeing on their shoes because they don't really understand how to figure that out. And a lot of times that lack of confidence and the lack of thinking, I really could do anything is what holds us back. So Christy says, what do you think about the fitness industry? This is a great question, Christy. Tough to teach yoga if people aren't coming into the studios. And gyms can be a germy place. Yeah. I was actually talking to a friend of mine who teaches yoga. And I said, well, have you thought about, is your goal to have your own place? And she said, well, it used to be. She said, but a lot of people really are going to that doing online fitness and they may never come back. So in my mind, yoga is a great question because I'm somebody who doesn't like classes. It's so the two things that I would say is online platforms and one-on-one. That's what I do because I don't like a class. So I have somebody who comes to my house at 1:00 every Wednesday and I complain about it and dread it for the whole hour before she gets here. And then I do it and I'm glad I did it. With fitness, I think we might see more one-on-one or 1 to 2 or 1 to 3, 1 to small group training and online training. The class of 18 to 20 people may not exist anymore. But I do think in that there's opportunity to do some other types of stuff. My person that comes at 1:00, I've got a couple people in my neighborhood, women in my neighborhood, and I say, do you want to come over and do yoga with me at 1? And then we just split the cost. I talked to the teacher about it. We split the cost. So maybe 2 or 3 people spread out in my house is the way to go. then you, as a teacher, you don't have rent. You don't have those kind of things to worry about. So you have to look at all the way around it. So Laura asks, best way to start a conversation with a company you're interested in, even if they aren't hiring right now. Okay, so I dismiss almost completely the phrase, they're not hiring right now. Because in my experience, even when companies say we have a hiring freeze on, they still have needs. They just aren't putting them out there because people are quitting. They're getting sick and not coming back. They're transferring with their spouses. So there's always need either today or upcoming. It's bubbling. So how I would present it or how I would approach that, Laura, is to contact somebody at the company and say, I'm really interested in your company and what you're doing. I'm pretty happy with what I'm doing right now, but I think it's smart to always keep an eye out for what's going on out there. I'd love to learn more about what your company's doing and what kind of skills they look for. What you're really doing, what you're really asking is, even if they say they're not hiring right now, what you're really asking is for information for when they are hiring. Would you be a fit? What you might find, and think about it too, those are no pressure conversations. You're getting educated. Who's doing what? And then you can think, would I fit here? What you might find, Laura, is that in that conversation, you might find they're like, well, send me your resume. I'd like to send it around to a few people. All of a sudden, you're in play because guess what? They were hiring. Everybody's hiring. Unless they're like getting ready to close their doors, in most places, they've got one or two areas where they still need help. Or if they say they aren't hiring today, wait till next week. Because somebody could quit, somebody could transfer, somebody could decide not to come back into a germy workplace or whatever. People get sick, etc. All these things happen. So hiring is fluid. Need is fluid. There's always demand. And so start thinking about what is it that you can do? What is it? How do you present yourself? And then as you're having these conversations with people, you can say, do you mind if I stay in touch? Because based on what you've told me today, I'm even more interested in your company. So I'd love to, when the time's right, talk further about it. So it's a no pressure conversation. Are you hiring is a yes or no answer. So don't ever say to people, I really like your company. Are they hiring? I don't think so. I think we're on some kind of hiring freeze. Okay, well, never mind. No. Do you understand? You change the conversation. There's a person on this call who I know who's a phenomenal gift giver and planner. And she loves to maximize events, people, gifts, etc. I think in this time of people focusing more on relationships, good and bad, there's opportunity for heightened experiences. There's opportunity for high-level gift giving, telling people you love them and appreciate them. And so do you have to do that inside of a corporation? Not necessarily. There are organizations who actually do that, or start your own. So whatever it is you're good at, whether or not you get paid for it right now or not, you can take that elsewhere. And you don't have to make a full leap. You can do it as a lifeboat job or a side hustle. And a lifeboat job implies that you need it to pay the bills. But a side hustle really is another way that you're building your experience to see if something works. Because if your job goes away, you don't want to be in a situation where you have nothing. And so take a look at what do people come to you for? How can you supplement your income to give yourself more cushion? What is it that people come to you for? How can you take, what you do and what you do well, how can you take it and pivot and use it differently? So my challenge to you as it becomes 12:30 is how do you want to come out of this? How do you want to take who you are and maybe use it in a different way, in a different place? So how do you want to come out of this so that you're well prepared for whatever happens next? I've been talking for years about the importance of being flexible, being able to pivot. And, you got to do it. If this has not given you the kick in the seat of the pants to learn how to do this and to commit to doing this and investing in yourself and your career, I don't know what it's going to take. You're just going to be in survival mode and you'll be in the lifeboat and never be able to get out. I don't want you to be in the lifeboat. I want you to be on a big, fabulous yacht going somewhere. So it's 12:30. You can send me a friend request on Facebook, send me a message through the Bauke group. And if you have a topic you want to talk about next week, like I said, we're doing a three-session coaching package now. We haven't started publicizing it yet. In fact, this is the first time I've talked about it. So message us if you want to hear about that. It's amazing what 3 to 3.5 hours with us will do for your career. I do this with people all the time, and they're like, oh my God, that was incredible. So 3 sessions is incredibly valuable and is worth the investment. That's all I have for today. If there's no more questions, we will see you back here next week, and go be awesome and put a big sign on your wall. How do I want to come out of this? Who do I want to be when all this is over? And don't be afraid to start answering the question. If you can't answer the question now, if you can't at least start to answer the question now, you have very little hope of getting there. Be awesome. See ya.